And this is the beauty of Islam. Ordinary, normal day activities that we do, eating, drinking, sleeping, playing sport, going to work, spending time with your family, relaxing, with entertainment, they can all be converted into acts of ibadah, where you're serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you get rewarded for it. How? Through your intention. Through your intention. What motivated you, and with what niyyah did you do that? For example, a man who goes to his wife in sincerity with the intention to save his chastity and to protect his deen will be rewarded for it. One of the companions was surprised. He asked the Prophet ﷺ, will we be rewarded for that? The Prophet ﷺ answered him with another question. What happens if he does it other than with his wife? Will he not be punished for it? So he said, for sure. So if you'll be punished, if you do it illegally, automatically if you do it legally, as Islam requires, you will be rewarded for it. And even a man who feeds himself and his family with the intention of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fulfilling his obligations as a husband, as required by Islam, will get rewarded for it. But the important thing is, sometimes we just do all these things without thinking about them. So you have a chance, you have a golden opportunity now to make all those things ibadat, acts of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by having the correct intention and making sure that they are done the way Islam requires us to do them. The Prophet ﷺ gave a beautiful example. He said, the Muslim who plants a garden and cultivates a crop, and a bird or a human eats from it, it will be considered a sadaqah from him, a charity from him. Now there's a common misconception that we need to clarify. The issue of, some people say that I have sincere intentions, but I'm lazy. I can't make salah. I can't wear the hijab. But Allah knows that I have sincere intentions. Right? I'm sure you come across people like that. Sometimes we do it ourselves. We say, yes, I have the intention, the niyyah to do that, but we use the IBM approach. Inshallah, bukra malash. Right? We always find excuses why we can't do it. But the scholars tell us that what we just did was we just said that intention on the tongue. The sincerity of that intention was only on the tongue, it was not in the heart. Because had that intention be sincere in the heart, and there were no physical obstacles stopping you from doing that thing, you would have done it. So that needs to be an indication to us. We are deluding ourselves. You are misleading yourself into thinking that yes, you have a sincere intention, but you're finding it difficult to do that. Check your intention. Because if you are sincerely wishing to do that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you do it. Sometimes, yes, there are physical obstacles to that. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about the man who intended to do something but he couldn't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will still reward him for it, as if he did the act. But he was physically, beyond his abilities, he was stopped doing that. Now let's look at some types of intentions. And the example that I'd like to use is salah. Because salah is very important to the life of a believer. Very, very important. It will be the first thing that will be questioned on the Day of Judgment. Salah will be questioned. So we need to work very hard on establishing our salah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَقِيمِ الصَّلَاةِ وَيُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ. Not doing the salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to establish the salah. It is a building that you need to build from the foundation upwards. It needs a lot of work. Once you have your salah established, nothing can destroy it. So there are 4 types of people regarding their intentions and how they do their salah. The first group of people are those who come to the salah lazily, grudgingly. Salah is a burden. Salah to them is an obligation that as a Muslim I must do, so I better do it. So they come grudgingly and lazily. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us in the Quran of those type of people with those type of intentions. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, woe to those musallin. Yes, they pray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called them musallin. They perform the physical prayer. But they don't have the required connection in the heart when they are doing that salah. And another aspect to it, not only do they do it lazily, they do it so that other people can see them. And this is the characteristic of the munafiqun, the hypocrites. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ and today, they pray so that people can see them praying. Or some people pray so that people can praise their salah. So they know that somebody is watching them, so mashallah they perfect their salah instantly. But when he's making salah alone at home, he prays as the Prophet ﷺ describes as a woodpecker. Okay, his salah is over and done within 2 minutes. But in front of people, he prays perfectly. So we have to be careful we don't fall into that category of people when we're making our salah. So think about what motivates you when you're making your salah. That's the first group. The second group, especially when we were younger and our parents, as the Prophet ﷺ taught parents to do, when a child reaches the age of 7, parents should encourage their kids to pray. When the child reaches the age of 10, parents should force them to pray. So we know we went through this. Our parents forcing us to pray. So sometimes you pray just so that you don't get punished by your parents, right? So that's another group of people. Doing it so that they don't get punished. The third is doing it for show or to fool people, as I mentioned before. And this is a form of shirk, because the Prophet ﷺ called it riya. Praying to show off, to show people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes some of the characteristics of the munafiqun. إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهِ وَهُوَ خَادِعُهُمْ وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالًا يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the hypocrites, they think that they are outwitting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah will outwit them. When they stand up to make salah, they stand up lazily to be seen of people, but little do they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fourth group of musallin are those who do their salah to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that is the time we are communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during our salah. We are standing in front of Him, submitting to Him, reading His words from the verses of Quran, communicating with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reminding ourselves of the instructions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in the Quran through those verses that we read in the salah. Surah Al-Fatiha, reminding ourselves at least 17 times a day of who we are, that we are Muslim, committed, that we have a contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that if we fulfill that contract, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us